Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to your Iowa Veterans Home, to this day's Memorial Day program. I am Tim Audrey, the 17th Commandant of the Iowa Veterans Home. On behalf of our residents and our staff and all of our residents that are viewing throughout our facility in our overhead monitors, thank you for taking time to be with us today. This is a special day to pause and remember those who gave their lives defending our freedoms, those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Today we honor and remember those who died in service to our country. As we remember those heroes, today we also honor their families, and we make the solemn promise to never forget the loved ones. Please stand if you are able for the advancement of the colors by the Boy Scout Troop 308, and please remain standing for our national anthem by Nikki Stevenson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. That will then be followed by our invocation. Color guard, post the colors.
Please salute. Color guard, halt. Color guard, cross the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard, honor your colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Bravo, Nikki. Bravo.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard, return.
Will you join me in prayer? Lord God, God of peace, we approach the throne of grace today in remembrance. We come before you, remembering that you raised up mighty men to serve with David on the fields of battle, to defend your people Israel. And we are reminded that you've also raised up mighty men and women to defend this nation also. We pray today for those who laid down their lives to defend our freedoms, and ask your presence with the loved ones they left behind too soon. We intercede today for those whose bodies and spirits bear the scars of their service and who struggle to this day to find peace and healing. Cover them with your grace. We raise up today all those who protect us now, especially those on fields of battle wherever they may be. Hedge them about with a special wall of protection until you return them home to loved ones and family. And finally, Lord, we would ask today, as we remember the depth of our losses and the cost of our sacrifices, that you would turn the hearts and minds of our leaders and our enemies towards peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Nelson. I would like to take just a moment to thank all the participants in our program today. We're so grateful to have these individuals and groups step forward to help with this very important day of remembrance. Thank you to Colette, who provided the music, the prelude, the postlude music. Thank you to the Boy Scout Troops of America, 308. Thank you also for placing the flags at the headstones in our IVH cemetery this past yesterday. Thank you to the Marshalltown's Men's Choir, directed by Larry Fanks, who is also having a church service here this Sunday, June 3rd at 2:30 here in the LRC. So you're invited to that also. Thank you to the United States Marines, E Company, 2nd Battalion, 24th Marines out of Des Moines. Thank you to our bugler, Don Peterson. Thank you also to Chaplain Nelson and our IV resident, Tom Fries, who will be placing our wreath this afternoon. A special thanks to Brad, Cindy, Matt, Sierra, Kayla, for all of their great work while putting this together. Thank you, Senator Edler, for being here today, and my wife, Sandy, for 38 years of my great support. I could not do this job without her wonderful support. Thank you also for the staff for coordinating, and a big thank you to all of our volunteers who come out every day and help with IVH and the residents what we have. We could not do this without our volunteers. The Marshalltown's Men's Choir will now sing Blades of Grass and Pure Whites of Stone.
Blades of grass and pure white stones shelter those who've come and gone. Just below the emerald sun are those who reach the arms of God. Buried here with dignity, endless billows for all to see. Freedom seeds in sorrow sown, neath blades of grass and pure white stones. Blades of grass and pure white stones cover those who've left their homes to rest in fields here side by side, lest we forget their sacrifice. Buried here with dignity, endless billows for all to see. Freedom seeds in sorrow sown, neath blades of grass and pure white stones. Just below the emerald sun are those who reach the arms of God. Buried here with dignity, endless billows for all to see. Freedom seeds in sorrow sown, neath blades of grass and pure white stones. Neath blades of grass and pure white stones.
We are here today to honor and remember our fallen heroes, our mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, aunts, and uncles who selflessly served our nation. These brave, dedicated men and women completed missions, won world wars, and protected American idols all over the world. Service members were and are vital to upholding the freedom we all enjoy today. Ordinary people rose in extraordinary circumstances to serve our great nation's causes time after time. Millions of Americans have fought and died to defend our life, our freedom. We encourage everyone to pause and reflect on the sacrifices these men and women made in defense of our country's ideals. Think about the courage, pride, determination, dedication, and integrity put forth while serving our country. Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, rose out of the ashes of the Civil War. Tradition of decorating graves began before the end of the Civil War. General John Logan of the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of veterans, proclaimed this statement in his General Order number 11. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or other decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but post and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. Families honoring their dead began to bring about reconciliation by decorating graves of the fallen, often unknown to those decorating the graves. The hope was that someone, somewhere else would do the same for their fallen family member. This effort to honor the fallen continues to this day. Citizens and service groups decorate graves of our veterans and wear poppies on their lapels in effort to honor all who have served. The tradition of wearing a poppy on Memorial Day developed after World War I, when soldiers recalled memories of the red poppies springing up of the blood-soaked soil overseas. Lieutenant Colonel McCare's home in Flounders Fields was the inspiration. Quote, "The blood of heroes never dies, but lends a luster to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flounders Field." Since then, the poppy has become a nationally recognized symbol of sacrifice worn by Americans to honor those who served and died for our country in all wars. There are living heroes among us today. As we pause to honor those still with us and those who have gone on to a greater place, let our gratitude bathe those who may still be healing, and the poppies and memorials call to memory those who are no longer with us. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. I have the honor and privilege of introducing our guest speaker, Iowa House of Representatives Democratic leader Mark Smith. Representative Smith is serving his 8th term in the Iowa House. Before being elected House Democrat leader, he served on the administration, rules, environmental protection, ethics, human resources, judiciary, legislative council committees. Representative Smith was born in Osceola and later graduated from high school in Winterset. He studied social work and is a graduate of both Graceland College and the University of Iowa, graduating with a Master's of Social Work in 1986. Representative Smith has spent his entire career helping people. He has worked with troubled children and their families, treated substance abuse, directed services to mentally ill, made sure nursing homes provide quality care for the elderly. Representative Smith was among the first to provide early mental health counseling to children through the schools. He was the director of Special Supports Project of Substance Abuse in Central Iowa. Representative Smith and his wife Karen have a daughter, Ellie. He is the former foster parent of 2 and is now a great-grandparent to 11 foster children. Representative Smith is very strong, the strongest advocate for the Iowa Veterans Home, and a great supporter of we here at the Iowa Veterans Home and myself. With that, Representative Smith.
Thank you all, and it is great to see all of you here today. I'm very honored to be able to give this address today and thank the Commandant for that opportunity and you, the residents of the Iowa Veterans Home, here for this day. I want to mention the title of my speech today is A Place, a Time, and a Community. Now, the reason why I'm telling you the title of the speech so that you can kind of keep track of how far I'm going and whether I stay on course or not. As a mental health professional, we were taught that if someone says, as God is my witness, the next statement they're going to make is a lie. As a politician, I've learned that when someone says, ladies and gentlemen, I will be brief, that is a lie. So I cannot think about the holiday that we call Memorial Day without thinking about my youth. Our farm was in the southern part of Clark County, Iowa, about 25 miles from the Missouri border. Memorial Day in those days was more homespun as a holiday than it is today, and all of the farm people around us worried that spring would be delayed, and as a result, the pennies would not be in full bloom by Decoration Day. Iris flowers, lily of the valley, poppies, bleeding hearts, and penny bushes were often planted on the graves of fallen soldiers who had lost their lives in World War I and World War II. It was with reverence that we made the rounds to the Woodland, Iowa cemetery where Erhard Lentz, an indentured drummer for Napoleon, is buried. He is my fifth great-grandfather and came to America after being freed by Wellington at Waterloo. We then traveled to the southern Iowa cemeteries at High Point, Last Chance, and Ottawa to pay respect to the relatives buried there. My history is similar to the history that all of you bring to this day. The magazine American Heritage Illustrated sometimes asks people the question, if you could witness an event in history, what event would you choose to observe? The idea of being a witness to history is one of the most important aspects of living. And to be part of the action that made history is even more important. My father was a typical Iowan, born in 1922, reared on a farm, a product of the country school education system, and the only male to graduate in 1941 from the Millerton, Iowa High School. He was, by the way, one of 4 students who graduated that year. Before joining the Navy in 1943, he had never left southern Iowa. The next 3 years of his life took him across the Atlantic to England, through the Panama Canal, to the Far East. He survived a torpedo attack on his ship, and he and his crew members stood for hours in the hull of the ship in knee-deep seawater, hanging on to what they could in an effort to keep the ship afloat. Later, his ship was the closest to the island of Formosa, and was there when the war ended. He and others entered the island to free the prisoners of war who were held there. These were events that he neither forgot and he also never talked about. I had to piece together the experiences my father had. When I started school in 1957, it was common for the boys to play war during recess. They often brought parts of their father's uniforms with them, and I once asked my father why he didn't tell war stories and why he wouldn't allow me to wear parts of his uniform to school. He was stern in his response and advised me that anyone who had experienced combat didn't want to talk about it, and that I was not to bring up the subject again. My father was correct in not making his war experiences the basis for playground activities, but there would have been value in him talking more about the experiences that he had because they were so important. As Archbishop Oscar Romero has said, there are many things that cannot be seen through eyes that have cried. It can only be seen through eyes that have cried. This is the place where many of my father's generation came to live because of declines in their health. Some of the declines in health are a result of military service. When I was first elected, there were many of my father's generation who lived here. Now, there are only a few. One resident here was aboard the USS French and saw my father and the other sailors enter Formosa and liberate the prisoners of war. The Iowa Veterans Home provided care for these defenders of our nation. It did it then, it did it for the veterans before that generation, and it will do it for generations to come. While time passes, this facility, this home remains. It is my hope that the only reason we would ever not need the Iowa Veterans Home would be because the world has learned to live in peace and that war, or the threat of war, ceases to exist. That probability is, in all practicality, unlikely. This place, this home, should always be here. Also is important is the role of community. There is a wonderful community within the Iowa Veterans Home. There is also a surrounding, caring, and proud community around the Veterans Home, and it's called Marshalltown. I have to confess something. Prior to getting to know many of the residents here, I often walked past many people and did not take the time to become acquainted and to learn your stories and the history you lived. I treasure the subsequent conversations I've had with so many of you over the years. After being elected, I encouraged Republican and Democratic candidates for the presidency. When you come to Marshalltown, come to visit the Iowa Veterans Home and all of the people here. After President Obama was elected, he asked me if I remembered the day we campaigned at the Iowa Veterans Hospital. Now, being the President of the United States, I didn't want to correct him that it's a home, not a hospital. And so I said yes. And he went on to say this, Mark, that was one of my favorite days campaigning. I've learned much from all of you and believe that even the presidents of the United States have as well. When we increase sharing between the community within and outside of the Veterans Home, we all benefit. We all grow. We gain more admiration for you. Those of you who live here also learn about us. Chuck Bailey, a longtime Marshalltown resident, was on the stage in Berlin in 1962 when President Kennedy stepped to the microphone and announced in the height of the Cold War that he too was a Berliner. Joe Latham is often here for these ceremonies and is also a long-term resident of Marshalltown who has attended more of these ceremonies than I have and flew jets during the Vietnam War. Laurel Phipps serves our community as well and is a World War II veteran and continues to be active in supporting veterans' causes. These are three of the many contributions made from our two mutually dependent communities, and that when we share, we all gain. So in the end, this place has served you, served us, for 132 years. And it is my hope that it will serve as long as we need military personnel, their spouses, and Gold Star parents. In the end, this is our time to protect, defend, and care for the residents of this home who protected, defended, and cared for us. It is our time to demonstrate our respect and admiration for all of you. In a few minutes, we'll leave this home, walk out into the heat, and place pine boughs on the tombstone of many veterans from different eras and different wars. It is a solemn remembrance of those who cared enough for the United States of America, for the state of Iowa, for their families and friends, for people who were living among them who they did not know, and for future generations to serve their country. Many of their stories are lost, but on this Memorial Day, 2018, they are not forgotten. Today is Memorial Day, a day when we remember those who've gone before us. Let this Memorial Day be a day when we honor them in this place, at this time, and in this community. Thank you. In this place, at this time and in this community. Thank you.
Representative Smith, thank you very much for those words of wisdom. And on your next bike ride,
Great.
you can have a nice water bottle right here. Again, thank you, Representative Smith, for those great words and sharing the story of your father, and again, your great support of the Iowa Veterans Home. The Marshalltown's men's choir will now sing "The Mansons of the Lord." Thank you. At this time, I'll now ask Tom Freeze, who is our president. Thank you. At this time, I'll now ask Tom Freeze, who is our president here at the Iowa Veterans Home, if you would please bring forward the wreath. General George S. Patton prayed in the soldier's prayer, "Let me not mourn for the men who died fighting, but rather let me be glad that such heroes have lived." We are grateful for their service and their ultimate sacrifice. Thank you for joining us to honor our American heroes. Their sacrifice is not in vain as long as we take time to remember them. Chaplain Nelson will now provide our benediction, followed by 3 volleys by the Marine Corps and the playing of taps. During the playing of taps, if you would be able to stand, please stand. With your hand over your heart, and veterans may render the hand salute. Please stand if you are able.
Father, as we close this time of remembrance, we come once again before the throne of grace, having heard the words, having remembered the deeds. And now, Lord, you remind us this. They were quicker than eagles and stronger than lions as they came to assist their nation. It's our duty to make sure that the memory of their sacrifice and heroic deeds will not be forgotten. May the peace you left us, the peace you gave us, be the peace that sustains us and the peace that saves us. Amen.
Amen.
Color guard, retire the colors.
Color guard, halt. Scout salute. Color guard, retrieve the colors. Color guard, return to ranks. Color guard, halt. Thank you for joining us. Color guard, dismissed.
Thank you for joining us today at your Iowa Veterans Home. All the support, again, of all the volunteers that we could not do without, and the wonderful, wonderful professional staff that is here at the Iowa Veterans Home.
Amen.
They run this place. They do a wonderful job of caring for every one of our residents each and every day. I thank you to that professional staff. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.